we love freedom. We are the ones who make a safer place we all can live in. There's a risk we're taking, not having any guns. With guns we have a better chance for everyone.
All right, we love our guns because we love freedom. What a beautiful idea. My name is Bedwell Khaliki. This is the Double Tap Show. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m., whether you like it or not. Joining me in the studio, as usual, is my partner in crime, the call-nameless guy, Mel.
Yo, Nephi. Yo. Now, last week we established that we kick tush. So here we go. Let's kick some tush today.
Now, we have other special guests in the studio today. I can't tell you how excited I am. I've been wanting to tell this story for a long time because it's a great story. Former lieutenant from North Las Vegas Police Department. He was the public information officer for North Las Vegas, Tim Bedwell. Tim, welcome to the Double Tap Show.
Thank you, Nephi. I got to follow Mel. I mean, seriously. Yo.
Well, he has the height disadvantage, so you're good.
All right.
Also in the studio with me today is Alyssa Waters, which you're going to hear a lot more from her. Can you just say hello, Alyssa, so everyone can put a...
Hello, beautiful world.
So today, people don't know a lot of history, Tim. They don't know a lot of history about how certain people wound up in power, how certain people wound up in different positions, or the history of what's happened. So what we're talking about today is how the story of our friendship, right?
And other relationship issues.
Yes. So to give you the backstory, so you understand why it's very unique that Tim Bedwell and I are here in the studio today, and that is that we used to be arch enemies. Right, we used to be at each other's throat. Sherry Buck was the mayor of North Las Vegas at the time. She had replaced Mayor Mike Montanan, who was a beloved mayor, who termed out. And then somehow, because somebody else had some major dirt on him, somehow Sherry Buck wound up as mayor. Now, history, Sherry Buck used to be my neighbor. Mike Montanan and I shared a back fence. We went to church together. We knew each other. So, but the thing was, Sherry Buck hated Mike Montanan. She couldn't stand being under him when he was the mayor, and she thought she should have been the mayor. She's like a mayor-level Hillary Clinton. That's her kind of attitude. She's very much like that. And when Mike took over, my company, Nevada Pigeon Control, was starting a public utility so that pigeons could be controlled for the whole city. It was going to be like 27 cents on everybody's bill, and we were going to just take care of the whole problem. We've been maintaining the strip, and this was a program that Montanan was putting in place with our company. Well, he termed out before that happened. And when Sherry took over, anything that Mike had his name on or his hand in, she totally just wanted to shut it down, including my program, which I'm like, hey, I'm under your foot here. Like, we're neighbors. We're like, what are you doing? So I had a pigeon sanctuary at the time where we were studying these pigeons because we wanted to figure out their behaviors. That clearly there wasn't anything that was going to solve that but behaviorism. And so we hit the news. Sherry said, I don't want that program. Mike was involved in that. Sent animal control to my office. And Dale, what was his name?
Smock.
Dale Smock. I'm trying to remember his real name because we used to have other names for him. Schmuck. That was it, Dale Schmuck. Right? So he comes out to look at our sanctuary, and he says, I don't know if this is legal. And I says, it says right there you can have birds. It doesn't specify how many. He goes, I don't care. I'm still not signing off on this. And I thought he's just running his mouth, and he'll come back later with, I don't have any legal basis to deny this. And then 2 days later, I call him and said, hey, I'm still waiting for my approval on this. And he said, I told you I'm not signing this. And I said, yeah, I figured you'd come to your senses by now and realized that there's no legal preclusion for me to do it. So, get to signing. And he says, "No, I'm not signing." I said, "I'll go to the media." And he goes, "Nobody gives a crap about your stupid pigeons." And I go, "Really?" Now, Tim, did they wind up giving a crap about it? So at the end of the day, 16 times on the front page of the newspaper is one of the most famous feuds between a government entity and an individual business. Now, when this feud started, Tim was assigned by Sherry Buck, who was the public informations officer. This is my interpretation, Tim, so you can correct it. But from my end of it, Tim was assigned to take me out. It was his job to see to it that Nevada Pigeon Control got out and shut me down. So they came after me and tried to shut down the pigeon sanctuary, and it started a feud that lasted for almost a year. And what I wanted to do was tell the listeners some of the perspective, because you're never going to get the perspective where you have both sides that were discussing like the behind the scenes stuff that went on. So, and then we'll tell you how we wound up just becoming friends. So, Tim, drawing you back to that time, it was 2009, and we had never met before. No, we just, so when did you first get word about, like, we need to do something about this Nephi guy?
Well, at the time, I had a lot of different responsibilities in the North Las Vegas Police Department, and I reported to the chief, and one of those lines in my title had to do with special investigations. I didn't really know what that was, but from time to time, it entailed me going to the chief's office and him saying to me, "I need you to go deal with this problem." And the problems were often zoning problems that the enforcement arm of the city didn't really feel comfortable going there, or it was too controversial, or for whatever reason. So in this case, I got called into the office, and I was told I was going to go handle this pigeon police problem. And I thought it was a joke. I really thought, yeah, that's pretty funny. And I think the rest of the day I still thought it was a joke. And then someone said, "Yeah, no, here, look, you can look it up." And so I did, and there was Nephi in front of his pigeon police car with his badge and all that stuff. And I was like, "Oh goodness, a joke would have been much better." I mean, truly. But I will admit this, that once I was given a responsibility, I took it upon myself to not just go at it from the perspective of whoever was that initiated it. And the good thing about Chief Chronister was that he never would come to me and say, "You need to go get rid of this people," or "You need to," he would be, "Find out what's going on here and see if you can mitigate it." And so that's what I did. And so many times, and I have a number of people who are in the same situation as you are, where they're friends of mine now. And we started out across the street, across the table from each other, and so, I think that's unusual.
Yeah,
frankly.
I think it's unusual too.
But you don't get to know that when I'm doing my investigation. Right. All you get to know is you see the face of the oppressor from the city who got told by the mayor to go and get rid of you, which wasn't my mandate ever. However, it really was a very thin line between whether I thought I was going to have to take some enforcement action or not, and what that would be. And about some of the meetings that we had that didn't take place and all of that. At the end of the day, though, I came to know you completely different from what you'd been described to me as. And, I hope that maybe the same was true for me.
Absolutely. I'll kind of cut to part of the resolution of this, and we'll kind of fill in some of the details in the middle, is that I swore to Sherry Buck I was going to get her out of office. And that I held her hand, I shook her hand, I said, "You won't sit in this seat one more term." she was trying to pull away from me, but the cameras were everywhere. She didn't want to pull away. And that's how I roped John Lee into running. He didn't want to run. Like I literally was writing his name and stuff like, John, you're running. And that's another very interesting story. I don't know if we could,
there's merely stories.
We could tell how John Lee basically was unwilling to run. And somebody pushed him into the ring and told the press that he was running. And suddenly that's what it took to get him to finally commit. But we were at the swearing in of John Lee, and they stuck me behind Senator Reed. And then after the event, you walked up to me and said, Nephi, I like the way you fight. And I couldn't say anything about it, but I have a lot of respect for you. And that was a sincere moment. And it was at that moment I had suspicions you were a good guy before. I had suspicions, but I couldn't confirm it. I was still going to come after your ass. But before we get back to this story, we're going to tell some of the details of the crazy things that happened. I want to talk to you about our sponsors. We have safegunlock.com, which is a very, very, very important tool that people have for locking up their guns, making sure that unauthorized people do not get a hold of them. That is the trend for the future in firearms, folks, is making sure that other people don't get a handle on your firearms. It's very important, and you can be able to train with them. So when we get back from the break, we're going to join back in with Tim, and we're going to tell some crazy stories. We'll be right back. Is your man a little sissy? If so, he may qualify for a free CCW. Go to our website at vegasccw.com and enter the code I'm a little bitch, and the free CCW class is yours. Present your bruises at the door and bam, you're in. vegasccw.com. Making the world a safer place, one little bitch at a time. All right, we are back. This is the Double Tap Show. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3. Whether you like it or not, bitches. Mel's not on.
Mel's not on.
Somebody turn Mel on. Tim, you're closest.
W-O-N.
No, you're not on.
You're on, Mel.
I'm on.
I can hear you, Mel.
You can hear me? Then I'm on.
You're all on. We're all turned on now.
Yeah, let's get back to reality.
So, Vegas CCW, making the world a safer place, one little bitch at a time. Right? That's our favorite thing to say every week. So I feel like we're saying something naughty. So, Tim, some of the things even you and I haven't talked about since we've been close friends. I will tell you, those of you listening, when Tim was the public information officer for North Las Vegas Police Department, they were doing stuff trying to shut me down. And at one point, they had animal control hit me like a SWAT team and send like 5 trucks. All the trucks they had, they sent out there to take my pigeons. And they showed up and the cage is wide open and the pigeons are gone. I'm finally going to tell you, Tim, where they were.
Oh, awesome! Because all this time, I lay awake at night trying to wonder were those pigeons.
They were in an abandoned business behind us, in a truck in a big cage. They were right there the whole time, and they come saying, and the newspaper was coming in there saying that his pigeons were on the lam. Right. And the North Las Vegas has all these big trucks out there, and they're trying to get me, to give up the pigeons, which is so funny if you think about it later. It's just funny how stupid Sherry Buck was to even direct this kind of theater. But I said, they ain't in North Las Vegas, so it's none of your fucking business. Right. So, and then they tried to give me a cease and desist. Like, I was a sex offender. I couldn't be around 500 yards from a pigeon. You're like, oh, get away from me, bird. You're going to get me arrested. But I had several pigeons that were retired racing pigeons in a cage in my office. And I'm going to go ahead and mention her because, I don't really care. Terry Kozlowski was the building and safety inspector that had took it upon herself to surveil me, to intimidate my employees, to cite me. She's a oh, this is awesome. She could be a Bud Light girl now. If those of you can read between the lines. But she took it upon herself to come out there, and because I had 5 pigeons and they gave me a cease and desist, but I didn't really care because all my business was on the Strip. So it was like, you can't do business in North Las Vegas. And I was like, so? I don't do nothing up here. That's just where my office is. So, and then all the others, the county and the city were like, we don't want none of this mess. Like, we're going to stay and see when the dust settles. But I will tell you, those of you listening, it culminated in Tim and I standing squared off in the city hall building, getting ready to throw down, while cops were filling in to city hall. And they come in there, and there's a guy in a brown uniform, and then there's a guy in a blue uniform squared off with each other, and they don't know what the hell's going on. It's all they know is that an alarm got pushed, and then the cops from North Las Vegas are all trying to fill into a conference room about the size of this studio here. Not knowing what the hell's going on, Tim's about to put me in jail. Because of the patch on my arm, I had washed it, and we only had to change one thing. Public utility had to change from that to Humane Society. But I just took a brown Sharpie and colored it because it's just thread, right, embroidery. Well, I came up late to the meeting where we were supposed to meet and work this out. And it just washed out a little bit. And Tim and, what was her name in business licensing? Not Amy.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but she was she was upset and texting Tim at the time like, he still has it on his patch. Right? Which was, the only thing, because I had, City Hall was going after a whole bunch of stuff. We were, Tim, you could tell me this side of it, because this doesn't make you look that good. It makes me look good, but I'm going to tell it anyway.
Go right ahead.
21 people in the conference room, City Hall, not this one, the bigger one, and they all took turns going in on me about, you can't do this and you can't do that. And I'm like, show me the law and I'll comply. That was my response to just about everybody, was show me the law and I'll comply. Well, Tim's on the right of me, and it gets to him and police department's opportunity to say something, and he says, well, you can't shoot your guns in North Las Vegas, and here's a copy of the statute, which I printed out for you. And I read it, and it was the one that says you can't shoot on residential. And I said, oh, this is residential only, specifically excludes commercial. Thanks for the permission. And Tim goes, what? Give me that. And he pulls it back up to read it. And at the end of this meeting, where they said there's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of salaries in this room, and we're all here to help you. And I'm like, my ass, you're here to help me. Right? They all took a turn biting me. And at the end of that, all that happened was I had to change the name on my patches. It wasn't the guns. It wasn't, anything else. We were sneaking around at night. We had boom trucks where we were getting above, the bird lines. And we were blasting hundreds of thousands of pigeons. And the casinos were the ones that stuck up for us. But there was a lot of things with Tim and I that...
you got to let me have a shot back at you.
Let's hear it. I want it.
So, despite the fact that there was no other crime in North Las Vegas at the time, I tried to not put, all of my hours of work each day into this caper. In fact, when I found out that they were at your location looking for birds, and somebody said, go up there and see if you can just make this go away. That was the only time I ever was at your office up there. And you showed me your stud birds you had inside.
Yeah.
I quite frankly, I was so intent on making sure that this was adequately resolved that I went to lunch after that. And
had chicken?
And yeah, I did, in fact. I went to El Pollo Loco. And while I was there, I saw some of those felony flight birds had landed there by the El Pollo Loco. So I thought I took that as a recommendation, and I went ahead and ate there. Now, I would say this, though. I have no idea what you're talking about, a meeting with 30 people. If I was there, I was slept through it because I don't remember anything like that. I do
happened.
remember you and I being in the hallway. I can tell you, quite frankly, there was never a time where I thought I was going to have to fight with Nephi. Now, other people might have thought that because he's kind of a stud guy and he's looking up at me like, he's got his point and he wants to make it. And, I'm a cop, so I don't ever allow anybody to do that. I put them in handcuffs and drag them. No, that's another city. But I do remember a couple of things about you that I never really thought badly of you. In fact, I remember the racing birds was pretty cool. Yeah. And your story about finding the alpha bird, and taking that out so the other birds, all that stuff was cool. It really was. In fact, it was so cool I went and Googled it and found pictures of you with that nefarious badge and patch and the patch you had on the door of your vehicles. Mel can tell you, yes. It was something else. But the thing about it is, I also remembered we were literally in the parking lot next to the city hall when you showed me your weapons. You remember that?
Yeah.
You had them in your truck, and you had something that was brand new, I think.
Yeah.
A really cool weapon. And you whipped that out. And I kind of knew at that point when you and I were talking about the weapons that you were using for this, that I really thought I was going to be able to make it go away. Because I'm going to tell you this. My mandate from the chief of police was to make this go away. It wasn't to go do something with Nephi. Don't harass him. Now, it didn't mean that I didn't want Nephi to think that at the time. I mean, really, and Mel can tell you that too. Yes.
I believed it.
I was the villain on the city side. I can tell you this one other thing that I think is pivotal. Mayor Buck and I never had any conversation whatsoever with regard to your pigeons. Now, what Dale Smock might have done, or Terry, or any of the others, I don't know. It may have happened. I don't care. I didn't care at the time. My position was, if this is something that's not healthy for the people of North Las Vegas, we need to try to make it go away. The problem was that my investigative skills, whatever those were at the time, really found that you actually provided a service that made the public safer.
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing you had with your, get rid of the birds, and it was a much safer thing for a number of reasons. You didn't have citizens out there shooting them with their 22s. Nobody had weapons like you had for taking out pigeons and really not presenting a danger to people. The specifics of the rule of law, maybe we could have cited you for some stuff, and I may have actually tried to leverage you some with that at times. But that went away pretty quickly. You and I really were not truly at odds, other than maybe in the papers or in some of the conversation. And there was one time when I mentioned the potential of criminal statutes being violated, and the city attorney was there, one of the deputy city attorneys there, and he about fell off his chair. And after you left, he got me, he says, I've never been in a room with somebody where we were talking about something like that and have a police officer mention arresting someone. I'm like, okay. I didn't arrest him. Is that okay? This was just part of the conversation. And I know that the intrigue that went on between you and the political side, and we've talked about it some sense, but really from my perspective as a police officer, with the very low crime rate North Las Vegas had, and the 21 or 26 murders we were having every year, there wasn't a whole lot for me to do but to chase around pigeons. Yeah, okay, right. Maybe I'm being a little sarcastic. But I'll tell you what, you can ask Bruce Santiago from Quality. He and I sat across the table yelling at each other, and he and I are very, very close friends now. And it was the same thing. He is Quality Towing. They had been excluded from the police tow list. It apparently might have been a political thing. I might have an NDA that means I can't talk about it. But nonetheless, you know what? Good people sometimes are at odds, and the true measure of them is how they resolve things. And you and I truly resolved this. And I like hearing you tell the story, and I don't usually call you out on anything because my story is a little different. But the fact of the matter is, I think you were a good guy at the time, and I think you were being oppressed for something that was just a little over the pale.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I felt like, what are you doing? Like, it was actually station casinos that went to bat for me, and Dave Gildersleeve was his name. He was the guy running all the facilities for stations. So he called me up and said, Nephi, can you still do your job with all this crap with North Las Vegas? And I go, yeah. They're not anywhere else but North Las Vegas. And he goes, I'm giving you all 21 of our properties. And he's the one that called Sherry Buck and said, hey, leave this guy alone. He provides a valuable service, which is what you also had come to realize. And we could have handled it for the whole city because that's how good Nevada Pigeon Control was at figuring out the behaviorism behind the problem. That could be a whole nother show on how we could do that. But there was a lot. It was just strange to me how much people were getting involved. Now, I got to tell this funny story.
Because it's been funny so far, just so you know.
Terry Kozlowski, the building and safety inspector, was inserting herself sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. Well, she kept coming over trying to talk to my employees when I wasn't there. She was staking out the building, and they were trying to figure out where I was hiding these pigeons, which is stupid. I could have just let them go, right?
I think you actually told me later that
I kept them.
Thought about letting them go, though, and I was
no.
Oh, that would have been pretty.
No,
pretty
I'll
cool.
tell that story too, where I clipped 1,000 pigeons' wings, and me and Blackjack were going down City Hall in a grid. My backpack had seed in it, like 50 pounds of seed, and every day I would go by City Hall and poke that hole in my backpack and walk the city park or grass in a grid.
A very humane thing, by the way,
to feed the birds.
Pigeons.
But they had one clipped wing so they could only fly in a circle. And all I could imagine was Dale Schmock out there with a net trying to catch these one-winged pigeons, right? But so that's a different one than this with, what the hell's her name? The building and safety inspector. So I called her on a different line because they're wondering where I had the pigeons. And I did a different voice. I said, listen, I don't want to get involved in anything here, but I think you need to look on the pigeon guy's roof because I think that's where he's hiding the pigeons.
I've never heard this one.
Right? So you can hear her because she threatened my employee, says, we have satellite images. We could check your property at any time we want. And I'm like, oh, really? So I called up in that voice I knew she'd respond to, and she's typing, and I can hear her zooming. And then she zooms in, and I had taken big gaffing tape, big, thick 4-inch gaffing tape, and I had spelled, and her last name is long, Kozlowski. I spelled F-U Kozlowski on the roof with duct tape. And she's like, oh, and then hang up the phone because she realized I got her, right? And she want to look at my roof. Bam, there you go. So this was the kind of antics that were happening. I don't know if you remember the video I did where I was in a black ski mask putting pigeons in the doggy door of a city official while they were on vacation. It was like 761, 762, and it went viral, but I never actually did that. But it didn't matter because the public kept saying, like, go Nephi, like he's socking it to the city, and they knew I didn't do it to anybody, but it didn't matter. The public, they knew.
I knew this
They
story.
knew. Yeah, they knew that I was doing it.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to wrap up and tell the story of what happened in court, which kind of closed the whole story up. But before we do, I want to talk to you about Botach.com. Botach.com, Botach. They are the tactical Costco of guns. They specialize in badassery, and they're local here to Las Vegas. I've been dealing with these guys since Las Vegas gunfights, and they're really, really nice people. Anything you want to get, and they don't always have the same stuff. So Botach.com, they are an awesome company to work with and one of our major sponsors here now on the Double Tap Show. So when we get back, we are going to talk about what happened in court with me and Tim Bedwell in the city of North Las Vegas. So we'll be back right after the break.
Time to be a hero. Tell the shooting's done.
All right, we are back. This is the Double Tap Show. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. And joining us in the studio, my good friend Tim Bedwell. Tim, this is fun going down the
Memory lane.
memory lane.
Yeah.
Mel, what do you know about memory lane?
I don't remember. Wait, no. I'm enjoying this because this is bringing back memories. But you say memories to me because I lived through it. Remember, it's the whole point. Everything you're talking about. I didn't have the private meetings with you and Tim, but I remember talking about it with you. But everything that you're saying happened, and it's amazing. But we're.
Yes.
Keep it up. I want to hear more.
So the last there's a lot of things that went on. I mean, I did a lot of things that are more prank level things to get. One of my strategies, and people can know about this all they want. This has been very effective for me in the political space in doing. Is I know that angry fighters are not good fighters. They don't keep their tactics. They just fall apart, they gas out. So whenever I fight physically, I always want to make somebody mad. So that's why I'm talking crap about their mom while I'm punching them in the face, because they get mad. The same thing works with politicians, is I'll get on their nerves with little stuff that they can't really get me for.
You can get on someone's nerves.
Oh.
Seriously?
Yes, very much so.
Might have seen it once.
Yeah. To get under their skin enough to where they make a mistake. That's all my whole thing is I know that their pride is their downfall. That we're the city. How dare he defy us? How dare he go against us? If we say it is, that's the way it is, and he'll like it or lump it. And that's their attitude, and so that's a weakness. And so I actually called from a burner phone Sherry Buck, and I pretended to be a former city manager from Seattle that had a similar problem with a business owner. And I kept telling her, take him down now. He's undermining your authority. He's making you look bad. He's making you look like he's more powerful than you are as mayor, and he's just a lousy pigeon control guy. I kept egging her on. She kept talking to me all the time, emailing me all kinds of stuff. She was confiding in me. The whole time she's trying to take me out, I'm actually talking to her on the back channels, right? So what happens is Terry Kozlowski comes out there and cites me for those 5 pigeons that you saw, which are retired racing birds. They're pets. And she cited me for a Title 30 violation, which is animal control. Now, when I show up in court, they're treating me like a sex offender about pigeons. And the whole gallery was full. Like the municipal court, who cares about that? But Channel 8 got barred at the front door. Channel 8 wasn't getting let in. And so they were out there screaming, hey, this is First Amendment, blah, 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 blah. And so finally Judge Van Lanschot let him in. And so when I come into the courtroom for them to basically flog and quarter me for 2 charges for animal control violations, the judge said right away, cameras from Channel 8's I-Team were there, and the judge says, Nephi, we're not in the habit of feuding with local businesses. Have you talked to the city attorney to see if they want to work this out? And I said, Your Honor, they don't want to talk to me. They want blood. And he said, would you be willing to talk to him now? And I'm like, they say that now that the camera's in the courtroom. So I go in the courtroom, or in the back room for the court, and sit down with Mike Davidson, who is the city attorney. And the first thing he says to me was, Nephi, you have to admit you're getting a lot of satisfaction out of messing with these folks. But clearly, and admittedly, much of what you're doing is quite hilarious. And I was kind of surprised to hear him say that. And he said, but what is this about? Is it about your business, or is it about you getting back at them? And I said, well, it's always been about my business, but it's not me. And he says, well, why don't we do this? I'll drop one of them, you admit the other one, you'll pay a little fine, And I go, do you know what I'm about to go in there and do right now? And he kind of looked at me, and I go, you think I'm going to jail? Terry Kozlowski is going to jail today, not me. And he looked at me, and he's like, what? How is that possible? And I said, what position is Terry Kozlowski? And he said, she's building and safety inspector. And I said, and what's the violation? What title is it on my ticket? And he says, Title 30. I said, well, that's animal control, right? And he says, yeah. And I go, you still don't get it, do you? And he's just looking at me blankly. Still doesn't get it. I said, give me your book. And I had him hand me his big title book. And I had him read from the statute. And it said, if you officiate outside the capacity for which you are officially hired and trained, that it is a gross misdemeanor. That animal control guy can't go out there and pull people over for speeding, even though he has the exact same ticket in his car that police has. You can't officiate outside your capacity. Well, Terry Kozlowski is building and safety. I don't know what title that is, but it ain't Title 30. I said, so when you go in there, you think I'm walking out in handcuffs? No, I'm going to bring up the fact, and guess whose name is on the bottom of this ticket? Terry Kozlowski, and the citation is for Title 30. Boom, here's the statute. Your Honor, put her in cuffs. And that's how I beat him. That's why when we went out back into the courtroom, he said, Mike Davidson said to the judge, Your Honor, we've reached a resolution in this matter. We're going to dismiss all the charges. And then the peanut gallery just started protesting like, boo, boo, no, no. And he's like, order, 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 order. Like, they were losing their crap. And he said, and the one that got him was he said, and I'm going to reconcile between Mr. Nephi and the city of North Las Vegas. And they lost it. He's hitting the gavel again because now not only did they drop the charges, but now he has to make peace with me. And that was the meeting that followed where you and I had to sit down with business license enforcement and all those other people. And it would wound up really intense at that moment because I remember saying to you, I come under a banner of truce and you want to threaten me with jail? Like, because of my patch? Like, come on, man. Like, it was very interesting. But once that was over, it was all about taking out Sherry Buck. It was all about whatever I had to do to convince John Lee to run, whatever I had to do. We beat him in the primaries by 5%. We knocked out the incumbent.
Right. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I was in Carson City at that time. You know, though, I got to tell you this. I don't think I've told you this before, but you know, you never know what a decision is gonna be hinged upon, right?
Yeah.
Why did I really not have interest in this, and other than to try to mediate it out? You had a video that you had made, and it was outstanding.
What video was this?
It was the only one I think you had at the time. It was a pigeon police video, and you had a bunch of cool B-roll in it. It was edited really well.
It was in a video book.
I kind of think you might have sang. I don't know if you did the music or whatever.
Yeah, it was Here Come the Birdman, Pigeon 5-0.
So
Here Come the Birdman.
I saw that, and it opened a new. It opened another page of you for me. Because all I really knew about you was the little bit of contact we'd had with each other, the negative things that was coming out of the departments that were trying to get you to comply in some way. I love that song, and that sold me on you.
Oh, because people don't know this. Tim is also a musician.
No.
Tim plays drums. He's a very creative person. He's kind of undercover creative type. That's what I've loved about you. And the more I got to know you, the more I thought, oh, man, no wonder. Because outside of what we're doing, you know, in our jobs,
right?
We
had to wear our face, you and I.
Yes.
All the time. We had our face up until we kind of knew that there wasn't anything between you and I. And then that went away.
But you know what, Tim?
The time you showed me the guns. Yeah. And the video.
Yes. So Tim, I appreciated our friendship through the years, and
Me too.
it's just gotten better, and it's one of the things I take comfort in, and we could talk about this a lot. And maybe some other people will learn that maybe I'm not such a bad guy, and chill out a little bit on the nonsense. So we'll pick this up later. We'll see you next time. This is the Double Tap Show.